In a dark, stormy night near an old, creepy mansion, a man named Akira, the silent assassin, was facing off against another killer going after the same target. The tension was thick, and Akira could tell this guy wasn't planning to back off. The rival assassin reached inside his robe, pulled out some hidden weapons, and launched them straight at Akira. But Akira? He dodged them like a damn ghost. The assassin didn't stop there. He charged forward with a sword, clashing with Akira in a series of fast parries and slashes. Sparks flew as steel met steel. But Akira, being the calm and collected monster he was, knocked the guy's sword into the air. The fool didn't even flinch. He just pulled out more daggers like he had an infinite supply hidden somewhere. Akira avoided every single dart with clean movements until the man went for one last desperate attack, and then Akira disappeared. Before the guy could even react, Akira reappeared behind him like some horror movie jump scare. The poor dude swung wildly, looking for an opening, but Akira blocked every hit and forced his hands down. The assassin tried one last trick, a kick with a bladed shoe, but Akira had already predicted it, stabbing his arm mid-motion. Then, as if breaking bones was his side hobby, Akira shattered the man's leg and dropped him to the ground. The defeated assassin realized it was over, and before he could even breathe his last word, his own sword, still falling from earlier, came down and ended his life for him. Talk about karma. After finishing the job, Akira slipped silently into the mansion like a shadow and crept toward his sleeping target. For a second, he hesitated, maybe wondering how he got to this point, but eventually raised his blade, ready to end another life. But before all this assassin drama, Akira wasn't a cold-blooded killer. He was just a regular high school student in Japan, the kind of guy nobody even noticed existed. Back in school, life was painfully normal. Some girls were asking their class president, Tsukasa, to grab lunch with them. But the dude turned them down, saying he had student council work. The girls were impressed, calling him hardworking, though let's be honest, he was just showing off his goody two-shoes energy. At another table, a few students were thanking a girl named Shuri for helping them with something. Meanwhile, Akira was quietly reading free novels on his phone, minding his own business. One of his friends, the only person who probably remembered his name, asked if he liked the novel Ice Guy. Akira, still emotionless, said he just reads whatever's free. Real broke boy energy. His friend laughed, told him to send some new free reads his way, and left. Some girls nearby started whispering, wondering who that quiet guy was. Even Akira was shocked someone actually talked to him that day. But just as he started eating his lunch, his phone began glitching like it was haunted. Then, out of nowhere, a dark mist appeared on the classroom ceiling. The darkness twisted into a glowing magic circle under everyone's feet. And before they could even scream, the whole class got teleported straight into a medieval castle. Everyone freaked out, obviously. Then, a weird-looking priest appeared and said the king wanted to meet them. The priest stepped aside and a royal-looking man and his princess daughter walked in. The king told the students that they'd been summoned from another world, Earth, to a place called Morrigan. He explained they were now in the Raidus Empire, part of the human continent that was currently under attack by demons. Then came the classic isekai speech. Only they could defeat the demon lord. The students went wild, already imagining themselves as anime heroes with cheat powers and harems. But the priest quickly dropped a twist. Only one of them could be the true legendary hero. One by one, the students tested their powers by placing their hands on a glowing orb. The first boy wasn't the hero, but the priest told him he was still strong enough to fight. Then, Yuki turned out to be a dispel mage, Tomoya became a knight, and Shuri was blessed with healing powers. The priest added that they could all check their status without touching the orb. So, everyone started showing off their stats like they were comparing grades after an exam. Nanase, one of Akira's classmates, asked what his class was. Akira said he was an assassin, but when he checked his stats, his eyes widened. They were off the charts, far higher than anyone else's. Then it was Tsukasa's turn. The golden boy stepped up, touched the orb, and got the hero class. Everyone started cheering like he just won the lottery. The priest hyped him up, praising his potential. But Akira looked at Tsukasa's stats and almost laughed. The guy had garbage numbers, the kind of stats you delete your save file over. Yet somehow he was the hero? Yeah, something was fishy. Akira decided right then that he couldn't trust this shady king or his suspiciously polite priest. So, while everyone was busy fangirling over Tsukasa, Akira used a concealment spell to hide his entire presence. Nanase turned around a moment later, saw he was gone, and freaked out, thinking he'd vanished into thin air. Once everyone was done showing off, the priest announced that they'd be given special weapons and armor, and that they should rest in their assigned rooms for now. Akira, still invisible, followed them quietly. But as he walked down the hallway, he noticed something. A camera hidden in the wall, recording everything. That's when it hit him. The king was spying on them, and Akira knew immediately. Trusting this royal clown was the worst idea imaginable. While Akira thought he was being sneaky, the man totally missed a knight secretly watching him from behind. Smooth move, assassin boy. Later that night, he found an old dusty storage room and decided to crash there, but being the paranoid assassin he was, he couldn't just sleep. He wanted answers. So after resting for a bit, he went out snooping around the castle like a cat at 3 a.m. As he looked out from the high towers, he finally took in the view, a foreign city glowing under a different sky. That's when it hit him. He really was in another world. The boy literally got isekai'd. Testing his new body, he hopped across rooftops with ease and realized just how busted his stats were. This dude could probably parkour over taxes if he wanted to. Then suddenly, voices echoed from a nearby room. Instantly, Akira activated his concealment and slipped into the shadows. Inside, the princess was talking to the king, saying the summoned students were nothing more than clueless brats with fancy titles. The king chuckled and told her to start the plan. She left, confident, and Akira almost stabbed the air out of pure annoyance. Standing right behind the king, Akira debated ending his life right there. One stab, and all this royal clownery would be over. The king suddenly felt a chill down his spine, turned around like he just saw a ghost, but of course, Akira was long gone. Man was too smooth. The next day, Akira stayed invisible and quietly joined the cafeteria. He watched his classmates happily chatting like they were on vacation instead of trapped in a shady kingdom. He wondered if he should tell them about the king's scheme, but quickly realized they were too gullible to believe him. And right on cue, Tsukasa, their beloved hero, stood up and started giving a motivational speech no one asked for. He told everyone that the king was a good man who blessed them with power and that they should repay him by fighting the demon army. The crowd went wild, cheering for their shiny poster boy. Akira could only sigh, realizing these idiots had been completely brainwashed. After lunch, the knight commander himself, Saren, gathered all the heroes outside for training. The man strutted around calling himself the country's final defense, flexing like some RPG DLC boss until his partner, Jills, politely told him to chill. Saren explained that the students would undergo a month of training before heading into a monster-filled labyrinth. He promised to help them get battle-ready, and the students cheered like they were signing up for a school festival instead of a death trap. Meanwhile, Akira lurked in the shadows, watching. He didn't trust anyone yet, especially the king's knights. When Saren left the field to handle something, Akira followed him for recon, but before he could hide again, Saren suddenly called out to him near a water fountain. Akira froze, wondering if his concealment skill had a cooldown or something, but Saren told him not to panic. His stealth still worked fine. The reason Saren could see him was because of his mystic eyes, a skill that gave him heat vision. Basically, medieval thermal goggles. Akira instinctively reached for his knife, ready to silence the guy, but Saren calmly told him to relax. He said he had no intention of exposing him. Akira didn't buy it at first. After all, this was the king's right-hand man, but the knight's words sounded genuine. Saren even asked Akira to keep their meeting secret from the king. After a long pause, Akira decided to trust him, for now. They sat down to talk, and Akira admitted he wanted to access the king's archives to understand more about this world. Curious, Saren asked what level Akira's concealment skill was. When Akira said it was already maxed out, Saren nearly choked. All his other skills, though, were still level 1, and he didn't know how to train them. Saren grinned and told him he'd teach him himself, since the archives didn't contain anything useful anyway. For the first time in a while, Akira felt excited. He could finally learn to control his insane power. Deep down, though, he still missed his family and wished he could go home. Saren told him he'd definitely find a way back, but only if he stayed alive long enough to do it. Feeling a bit awkward about getting free training, Akira offered to repay him somehow. Saren just laughed and said he could tell him stories about Earth instead. As the charming knight extended his hand, Akira actually smiled and shook it, a rare moment of trust between two warriors. Their training started soon after, and Saren went all out. The knight made Akira do brutal drills every day, explaining that he could only level up his class by defeating monsters, but his skill levels could rise through pure practice. Akira pushed through it, determined to grow stronger. In between their sessions, Saren was fascinated by Akira's stories about Earth, cars, phones, the internet. All of it blew his mind. For Akira, though, it was kind of ironic. The things he once found boring back home now felt like precious memories in this dangerous, magical world. After some time, Saren sat in a quiet room with his partner, Jills, who couldn't help but ask why he was spending so much time with that new kid, Akira. Saren just chuckled, saying the kid's stories about Earth were too good to pass up. Jills admitted he found them interesting too, especially when Saren casually dropped the bomb that Akira wasn't just any summoned student, he was the real damn hero. The true chosen one, hidden behind that assassin title with the maxed out conceal skill. Jills almost fell out of his chair. In their world, only the first legendary hero had ever been that broken. Realizing the kind of monster Akira was, Jills quietly backed off when the boy himself arrived at the door. Akira entered carrying an old book he'd stolen from the king's archives. He handed it to Saren and said it contained something troublesome. Saren Saren took one look and smirked. It was his own book, the one he'd written himself, cleverly disguised as a damn cookbook. He explained that it contained his secret plans to overthrow the king. Yeah, the same king who summoned them all here and acted like a holy saint while secretly trying to control the entire world. Saren called him a greedy old bastard who only cared about power. Akira went silent for a bit, trying to process all this royal backstabbing. Saren went on to explain that even the royal knights had grown tired of the king's nonsense. They all wanted to take him down, but with as little bloodshed as possible. Akira, ever the assassin, commented that he could easily slip in and end the king's life without anyone noticing. He even admitted that he'd already snuck into the king's study on day one, but didn't have the heart to go through with it. Saren nodded and told him he made the right call. Being an assassin didn't mean he had to become a killer. Akira looked down, saying he didn't want his family to find out he'd become a murderer. Hearing that, Saren gave him a small, approving smile. Then, Akira, still confused, asked why Saren trusted him so much. The knight replied that it wasn't about blind faith. He saw something different in Akira. The way the boy questioned the king from the start showed wisdom and maturity beyond his years. Saren respected that. In his eyes, Akira wasn't just another lost student. He was someone who could see through lies and think for himself. The room went quiet for a moment before Akira admitted something he'd never told anyone. He said he'd never been noticed back home, that no one ever really cared. Saren raised an eyebrow, surprised by the sudden honesty. Akira explained that Saren was the first person who ever praised him, who actually saw value in him. That hit Saren right in the heart. So, with a warm smile, the knight asked if Akira would help him overthrow the king peacefully, not for glory, but as thanks for believing in him. Akira didn't give a clear answer, but said he'd think about it, then left the room in silence. A month later, training was over and the students were ready for their first real mission. Saren gathered everyone and proudly announced they'd be exploring the great labyrinth of Kantinen. The streets were crowded with people cheering for them like they were celebrities. Akira couldn't help but feel awkward. It was the first time anyone treated him like a hero, even though nobody knew who he really was. While looking around, he noticed a girl watching from the edge of the crowd. When he asked what she was staring at, she snapped back in anger. She told him that people had sacrificed their lives just to summon the heroes. Akira admitted he didn't know anything about that, and the girl just said they'd meet again once he learned the truth. Then, she disappeared into the crowd. Soon, the group entered the labyrinth, and, of course, all hell broke loose immediately. One dumb student stepped on a trap, and suddenly, a horde of giant ogres came crashing in. Akira instantly took out one of them like it was nothing and asked Saren if they should retreat. Saren nodded and used his divine sword spell, slicing through dozens of monsters in a flash. But as soon as they reached the next gate, an even bigger swarm was waiting. Just when everyone started panicking, Tsukasa remembered the emergency smoke bomb that the princess gave him. He threw it down like a hero trying to look cool. But instead of saving the day, the smoke cleared and revealed something way worse: a massive minotaur. Jills, who'd joined the fight, was shocked to see a monster that strong appear so early in the labyrinth. The group froze as the minotaur roared and charged at them. Akira dashed in, narrowly avoiding its huge strikes, and climbed up its back like a boss. He tried stabbing it, but his sword literally shattered against its skin. Great job, Akira. You just brought a butter knife to a boss fight. He quickly retreated, landing beside Tsukasa, who was too exhausted to move. The so-called hero was having a full-on breakdown, blaming himself for being useless. Akira, being the more composed one, told him to stop acting like a drama queen and rely on his teammates for once. Everyone had trained for this moment, not just him, but Tsukasa kept panicking until Akira noticed something was off. He told the Dispel mage to check him, and sure enough, she discovered a demonic curse was messing with his head. She used her magic to break the curse, and Tsukasa finally stopped hyperventilating. With the situation back under control, Akira turned to Saren and asked if he could use that technique. Saren smirked, then unleashed a lightning flash that struck the Minotaur dead on, stunning the beast and lighting up the whole dungeon. The students stood there, frozen, watching their mentors move like gods. Akira saw the opening, disappeared into the shadows, and reappeared behind the Minotaur. The air around him darkened as he prepared to unleash his ultimate shadow magic. In a blink, Akira unleashed a power that shook the entire dungeon. Shadows erupted around him and wrapping the monstrous Minotaur in pitch-black chains of energy. But the beast roared, shaking off stone debris as if to remind them that it wasn't some weak tutorial boss. But Akira didn't flinch. The guy looked like he was done taking L's from life. In that moment, his assassin aura exploded. Countless blades of shadow energy formed around him and shot forward with lightning speed, piercing through the monster's massive body like it was made of paper. The creature bellowed one last time before Akira dragged it down into the earth, burying it in darkness. The ground split apart as the shadows swallowed the beast whole. Everyone around him could barely process what just happened. Their quiet, invisible classmate had just erased a literal boss monster from existence. But this newfound power came with a price. Akira's energy spiraled out of control. The shadows spread like wildfire. The other students started backing away like, "Nope, we're not dying today." Even the knights looked uneasy. They'd seen strong magic before, but nothing like this. Just when it looked like Akira was about to turn the whole area into a black hole, Saren appeared. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. He told Akira to breathe, to focus, and to take control of the storm he had unleashed. The words hit home. Slowly, Akira steadied his breathing. The roaring shadows began to shrink, the energy fading away until the battlefield fell silent again. Everyone stared at him in awe, like the quiet loner from class who barely spoke to anyone had just done what even the royal knights couldn't. After the fight, Akira stood outside the dungeon beside Saren. The commander placed a hand on his shoulder, thanking him sincerely. He said if it weren't for him, everyone would have been wiped out. Akira said nothing, but his eyes carried a storm of emotion. Deep down, he knew he wouldn't even be standing there if it weren't for his master's training. Then, Saren asked about the technique Akira used. Shadow magic, he called it. A rare and deadly type of power, one strong enough to obliterate anything, but unstable as hell. It drained energy faster than a phone on 1% battery with YouTube running. Saren told him not to use it again unless it was a matter of life or death. Akira nodded and promised he wouldn't risk losing control again. Then, out of nowhere, Saren handed him a gleaming katana and said, this was no ordinary sword. It was the same weapon forged by the very first hero in history. Akira, shocked, asked why Saren was giving it to him instead of the so-called chosen hero. Saren smirked and said the hero already had his sacred sword. Besides, if Akira carried this one around openly, the king would notice right away. Akira, confused, asked why that was a problem. Saren casually revealed that he had stolen it straight from the royal armory. Akira just stood there, blinking. The knight everyone thought was a noble man of honor had just admitted to grand theft with zero guilt. Akira shrugged and took the blade anyway, because who says no to free loot? Then, he asked what the sword's real name was, but Saren said no one could read the ancient writing carved into it. But as his eyes scanned the glowing runes, the words appeared clear as day. God of the Nightblade. Another line beneath it said the sword was destined to guide its successor in times of need. That made him curious. Who was the original forger? Who was the first hero? But before they could dig deeper, Akira mentioned that ever since the fight, he'd felt a heavy, lingering curse inside him, something that refused to fade. Saren went quiet, and he already had a good idea of who was behind it. The scene shifted to a distant chamber where a mysterious girl stood before a glowing crystal. She gently touched it, calling it Tsukasa Sado, and whispered that she wished it could become a puppet, a fake hero under her control. But before she could continue, a dark figure sliced through the crystal in a single motion. The girl spun around in terror. Akira stood there. He told her he was there to end the curse that bound the hero. The witch tried to scold him for barging into a lady's quarters without permission, but Akira said she wasn't a lady, just a manipulative bitch using curses to control people. She kept her calm, insisting that everything she did was for the king and repeated the same crap like a broken record. Akira, done wasting time, turned around and vanished into the shadows. But just as he left, that bitch opened a drawer full of glowing crystals, each one labeled with a name. She was collecting people's souls like trophies. Later, Akira went straight to Commander Saren to report everything. She listened carefully, confirming that his suspicions were right all along. When he asked if the princess had seen his face, she said probably not, but warned that staying in the castle was no longer safe. She explained that the princess had begun cursing everyone except the hero. Akira's strange class protected him for now, but if he slipped up, they'd execute him without hesitation. She advised him to escape that night. Akira asked if she'd punish him for showing his face, but Saren smiled softly and said, everyone makes mistakes. And before they parted, she asked him for one favor, that one day he would take her to see the world he came from. But the next morning, chaos erupted. Akira woke to the sound of shouting outside. When he ran out, he froze. Commander Saren was murdered. But before he could react, the crowd turned on him. People accused him of killing her with a spear. He tried explaining that his weapon had shattered during the last battle, but no one listened. The king arrived, pretending to be heartbroken, and ordered his arrest on the spot. Akira caught a glimpse of the princess smiling from the crowd, and that's when it all clicked. He'd been set up from the start. While escaping, he ran into his ally Jills, who told him the truth. Saren had been killed by the king's assassins, the Night Crows, and now they were coming for Akira next. He handed him a small bundle of items that Saren had left behind, saying they were his last gift. Akira realized his master had seen this coming all along. As night fell, the princess reported back to the king. She proudly said the curses were complete. Every student except the hero was now under control. The king grinned, saying those kids would be the perfect pawns for his upcoming war. As for Akira, he didn't care. He assumed the boy would die in some alley. Still, he ordered the night crows to finish the job, just to be safe. Meanwhile, Akira remembered his master's advice. The best place to hide was inside a dungeon. But water was scarce and survival would be brutal. He also recalled what Saren had once said. The deeper he went, the stronger his enemies would become, and that was the only way to level up. And if he could reach level 100, he'd unlock a special ability strong enough to survive in this cursed world. And so, under the moonlight, Akira walked toward the Kentainen labyrinth, a place where only fools or legends dared to tread. He wasn't running anymore. The kingdom wanted an assassin to disappear? Fine. He'd vanish so completely that the shadows themselves would fear his return. Inside the dungeon, Akira's hellish training truly began. He faced monsters that looked like they came straight out of every gamer's worst nightmare. Fangs, slime, and muscles stacked on muscles. But he pushed through every level, slicing and shadow-stepping like a man possessed. His body was bruised, his clothes were in tatters, but his resolve burned stronger than ever. Finally, he reached a massive door, the one his master had always warned him about, the boss chamber. Once he stepped inside, there would be no escape. Either he walked out victorious or got buried 6 feet under. The battle was nothing short of chaos. The boss, a massive beast dripping in malice, lunged at him with terrifying speed. Akira barely dodged, but not without getting slashed across the chest. Blood gushed out, and the pain was unreal. The monster roared, shaking the entire cavern, while Akira stumbled back, gasping for air. He realized this thing wasn't just strong, it was built different. But Akira wasn't about to die like a background character. With desperation fueling him, he unleashed his trump card. Shadow blades burst into existence, swirling around him like a storm of black death. He let them fly, dozens of them, piercing through the monster's body again and again until it howled in agony. As the fight dragged on, Akira's vision blurred. He remembered his master's voice echoing in his head. When your injuries go beyond the limit, your emergency mana reserves will trigger a recovery mode. Just survive until then. That thought alone kept him on his feet. He pushed himself past his breaking point until finally, the beast crumbled and silence filled the room. While Akira fought for his life deep underground, the scene shifted back to the so-called hero, Tsukasa. The guy had decided he was ready to face the demon lord because apparently, delusion was his superpower. Everyone around him begged him to stop, warning him about what happened to Akira. But Tsukasa brushed them off, saying he was fine. That's when it became clear to the group this was the princess's curse at work, the same one Vice Commander Gilles had warned about. Still, a few stubborn idiots decided to follow him. As they made their way out of the castle, they were surprised to find no resistance. It was almost too easy. Tsukasa couldn't help but think something was off. Why would the king, the same guy who ordered them to defeat the demon lord, suddenly stop caring about them leaving? It didn't make sense, but logic was never Tsukasa's strong point. When he asked why they decided to tag along, one of the girls explained that she had natural resistance to magic, so the curse hadn't affected her. She also mentioned that lately it felt like another hidden force was manipulating everyone in the castle. Then, one of the boys sheepishly admitted that it might have been his fault. He'd smashed some weird glowing crystals, and after that, everything had gone to hell. The story then revealed what was really going on. Vice Commander Gilles had been the one pulling the strings, controlling the boy's actions to destroy those crystals. He said his magic was far stronger than the princess's curse and could bend anyone's will. After completing Saren's final orders, Gilles stood on a cliff, looking at the horizon, quietly wishing the heroes from another world good luck, because they were going to need it. Elsewhere, a young man with long hair stared up at the sky, regret clouding his face. He thought about Akira and muttered that he should have joined him when he had the chance. Curse or no curse, he had failed to protect his friend. Then, the story flashed back to the first time Akira met this man, Caillou. Their meeting had been brief, but genuine. A simple handshake, a quiet smile. While working together, Akira asked Caillou to keep his job a secret, even from his younger sister who was still in her first year. Caillou grinned, showing him a picture. Turns out his sister was in the same class as Akira's. The two laughed at the coincidence, and that moment became the start of a real friendship. Back in the present, Akira awoke in a damp, eerie cave. The air was cold and the faint drip of water echoed through the darkness. He groaned as he stood, checking his stats. They were insane. His level had skyrocketed and his strength had nearly doubled. Still, he couldn't shake the weird dream he'd had about Caillou. Something about it felt too real. As he walked through the dungeon's tunnels, he came across a strange gelatinous creature, a slime. He destroyed it easily, but when it splattered apart, he froze. Inside the translucent mess was an unconscious elf girl. Using his special ability, Akira briefly accessed her memories and instantly regretted it. Whatever he saw shocked him so badly he canceled the spell. He muttered under his breath that it couldn't be true. Then, to his surprise, the girl's eyes slowly fluttered open. Akira crouched beside her and asked if she was all right. She weakly nodded, though her body was trembling. Checking her stats, he saw her HP was dangerously low, barely 2%. Any more strain, and she'd die on the spot. But then he noticed something strange. The girl had the same ability as him, the power to read minds. When she accidentally glimpsed his status and saw his name, her eyes widened in shock before she fainted again. Akira sighed, picked her up, and carried her to a safer spot. There, he built a small camp and did his best to treat her wounds. A while later, she woke up, and the first thing anyone heard was her stomach growling like a monster. Akira couldn't help but laugh. He handed her some water and told her to sip it slowly. She admitted she hadn't been able to sleep because she was starving. Akira opened his pack and handed her a handful of rice, telling her to eat as much as she needed. While eating, the girl curiously asked how he knew so much about healing. Akira smiled softly and said that his mother had always been sick, so he'd learned to take care of people from a young age. She looked around and noticed strange markings carved into the cave walls, numbers arranged in neat rows. Akira explained that he made those marks to keep track of where he was in the dungeon. Still exhausted, the elf thanked him and fell back asleep, promising to rest until she was better. When she woke again, her color had returned. Together, they decided to continue deeper into the dungeon. Akira warned her it was too dangerous, but she brushed him off, saying she could handle herself. Realizing she wasn't going to take no for an answer, he reluctantly agreed. They ventured into the lower levels, where the air grew heavy and the shadows darker. Suddenly, the ground trembled. From the darkness emerged a massive dragon, scales glistening like black steel. Its roar shook the entire cavern, and they both dove aside to avoid its claws. Akira activated his camouflage spell, vanishing from sight, but the beast was too smart. It whipped its tail, slamming him hard against the wall. He coughed up blood, dazed, when he heard the elf shout at him to spread his mana through the air. Doing as she said, Akira released a surge of energy, forming a field that weakened the dragon's movements. Then he went in for the kill. Sprinting forward and drove his blade straight into the dragon's eye, the beast roared in agony, thrashing violently before collapsing with a final rumble that shook the ground. For a moment, everything was still. Then, a blinding light erupted from the dragon's body, filling the entire room. The light surrounded them both, growing brighter and brighter until everything disappeared in white. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.